My new stepmother accused me of being nice just to take her kids after I packed lunches for school. She yelled, "You're not their mom." But one day, the youngest whispered, "Can you be?" And that night, CPS knocked, asking about bruises and screaming. I never wanted to be anyone's mother. Not really. I never daydreamed about tucking kids in at night or packing school lunches with little notes inside. I never pictured myself at soccer games, waving from the bleachers, or sitting in a tiny chair at parent-teacher conferences. But life has a way of throwing you straight into the deep end before you even realize you're drowning. I met David at a coffee shop on a Tuesday morning in November, a day so ordinary I never would have guessed it would change my life. I was standing in line, half asleep, when I felt something hit the side of my leg, a sudden splash of warmth, then the strong scent of caramel and espresso. "Oh no," a small voice gasped. I looked down. A little boy, no older than 7, was staring up at me with wide, guilty eyes, his tiny hands frozen around an empty coffee cup. He looked terrified, like he expected me to yell. "I'm so sorry," a man's voice said behind him. "Finn, what did you?" That was the first time I saw David. Tall, dark hair, just starting to gray, a deep crease between his brows as he crouched beside the boy and checked his sweater for spills. "It's fine," I said quickly, shaking off my coat. "Just a little coffee, no big deal." The boy, Finn, still looked stricken. I didn't mean to. My hand slipped. "It's okay, buddy," I reassured him. "Happens to the best of us." His shoulders relaxed just a little. David sighed. "I'll buy you another one." "You don't have to, I insist," he said, already reaching for his wallet. "It's the least I can do." And that was how it started. One spilled coffee, one apology, one chance meeting that turned into a conversation, then a first date, then another. By the time I realized I was falling for him, it was too late to stop. David was different from the men I'd dated before. He was patient, steady. He made me feel safe. And after a messy divorce that had left me questioning everything, I needed that. But he also came with baggage. And I don't mean Finn and his 10-year-old sister, Ella. No, I mean his ex-wife, Stephanie, the woman I hadn't met yet but already knew was going to be a problem. I didn't meet Stephanie for the first few months. David didn't talk about her much, except to say that their divorce had been messy. That was putting it lightly. "She's difficult," he admitted one night as we lay in bed, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting long shadows on the walls. "How difficult?" I asked, tracing little circles on his forearm. He let out a slow breath. "She fights me on everything. Custody, schedules, school stuff. Anything she can use to make my life HLL. She does." I frowned. "Does she give a kid a hard time?" David hesitated. "She loves them. In her own way." That didn't sit right with me, but I let it go. I wasn't their mother, and I wasn't about to start critiquing the woman who was. Not yet. The first time I met Ella and Finn, I was nervous. I didn't want to be some awkward outsider hovering in the background of their lives, but I also didn't want to overstep. David reassured me, said they were good kids, just a little shy. He wasn't wrong. Ella was 10, quiet, always watching. She studied me like I was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Finn, on the other hand, was more open. He asked a million questions. Why was my hair brown? Did I like pancakes? What was my favorite dinosaur? T-Rex, obviously, which he informed me was kind of basic but still cool. It wasn't instant closeness, but it was comfortable. For a while, things were good. David and I moved in together after a year. I started seeing Ella and Finn more. I wasn't their mom, and I never tried to be, but I listened when they talked. I made their favorite foods. I left little notes in their school lunches. Just simple things like, "Good luck on your test," or "Hope you have a fun day," smiling face with smiling eyes. I didn't think much of it until the day Stephanie showed up at our house. It was a Saturday morning when I first saw her. David and I were cleaning up breakfast when there was a pounding on the door, loud, urgent. "Expecting someone?" I asked. David frowned. "No." When he opened the door, I caught my first glimpse of Stephanie Jacobs. She was striking. Tall, blonde, sharp features that might have been beautiful if they weren't twisted in fury. Her eyes locked on me immediately. "So," she said, arms crossed, "you're the one playing mommy to my kids." David groaned. "Stephanie, not now. I'll do this whenever I damn well please," she snapped, still staring me down. I swallowed. "I'm not trying to replace you." Her lip curled. "Oh, really? 'Cause packing their lunches, writing them cute little notes? That's what a mother does." I blinked. That's what this was about. I was just being nice. She stepped closer, voice dropping into something venomous. "Listen to me, and listen good. You are not their mother. You never will be. And the next time you try to overstep, you'll regret it." My hands clenched at my sides. I wasn't about to start a screaming match in front of the kids, so I forced my voice to stay calm. "I'm not trying to take your place," I said again. "I care about them, that's all." She scoffed. "That's cute." Then she turned to David. "Tell her to stay in her damn lane." David sighed. Stephanie, stop. She glared at him. You always were weak. Then she stormed back to her car and peeled out of the driveway. I let out a slow breath. Wow, that was... Yeah, David muttered, rubbing his temples. That was Stephanie. I wanted to forget about it, to brush it off as a bitter ex-wife being territorial. But something about the way Ella and Finn watched her go, tense, silent, made my stomach twist. They weren't relieved that she was gone. They were afraid. After that, things got weird. Ella and Finn started acting different. Ella, always quiet, became even quieter. Finn, who used to be so full of energy, got nervous over little things. If I raised my voice even a little, not in anger, just in excitement or surprise, he'd flinch. And then there were the bruises. They weren't obvious. Just little ones, here and there, on Ella's wrist, on Finn's arm. Kids are clumsy, I told myself. They fall. They bump into things. But one night, as I was tucking Finn into bed, he grabbed my sleeve. Miss Rissa, he whispered. I smiled. Yeah, buddy. He hesitated. Then, voice barely audible, he asked, Can you be my mom? My heart stopped. Finn, I know I already have one, he whispered quickly. But she gets mad a lot. And you're nice. I swallowed hard. Does she hurt you? His grip on my sleeve tightened. Ella appeared in the doorway. She looked at Finn, then at me, then shook her head, almost imperceptibly. She was warning him. A lump formed in my throat. You can talk to me, I said softly. You know that, right? Finn just looked down at his blanket. And that's when I knew. Something was wrong. The next night, there was a knock at the door. David was in the shower, so I answered. I expected maybe a neighbor. Instead, I found two CPS workers standing on our porch. Good evening, the woman said. We receive an anonymous report of child abuse occurring in this household. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. David rushed out, towel still around his neck. What? We need to ask your children some questions. I felt like I was moving in slow motion as I stepped aside. Ella and Finn were curled up on the couch. When the social worker approached, Finn flinched. The woman noticed. She knelt down beside him. Sweetheart, has someone been hurting you? His wide, terrified eyes darted to me, then to David, then slowly to his own arms. My breath caught, because I saw them. The bruises. Small, faint, but unmistakable. My heart pounded. Finn, what happened? He clamped his mouth shut. The social worker's expression hardened. We'll need to take them in for further evaluation. David panicked. Wait, hold on. Who reported this? The woman didn't answer, but I already knew. Stephanie. She was covering her own tracks. David's hands were clenched into fists. I could feel the anger radiating off him, but there was nothing he could do. Not yet. The CPS workers weren't here to negotiate. They were here to take the kids. Where are you taking them? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The older woman adjusted her glasses. They'll be placed in temporary custody while we conduct our investigation. David's face paled. They have a home. They belong here. The younger social worker, a man with kind eyes, sighed. We understand this is upsetting, Mr. Carter, but we have a duty to ensure their safety. Ella's hand shot out, grabbing Finn's arm as they started to pull him away. No, she cried. Ella, David started, reaching for her, but the older social worker stepped between them. Sir, please, she said firmly. Finn wasn't crying, but he was looking back at me, wide-eyed and silent, like he was begging me to stop this. But I couldn't. I wasn't their mother. Not legally. Not yet. I didn't have the power to fight for them. And Stephanie knew that. David fought. Of course he did. He called his lawyer before the CPS workers even made it down the driveway. He spent the next 3 days buried in legal paperwork, pacing the house, snapping at every bureaucrat he could get on the phone. I barely saw him eat. He didn't sleep. I tried to get him to rest, but he just shook his head. I can't. Not until they're home. I felt useless. Every night, I lay awake, thinking about Finn's whispered words. Can you be my mom? I would, if they let me. If Stephanie didn't destroy them first. 2 days later, David got a court date. It wasn't a full custody hearing, not yet. Just a chance to argue that Ella and Finn should be placed back in his care while CPS investigated. When we arrived at the courthouse, Stephanie was already there. She looked different. Not the furious woman who had screamed at me on my front porch. She had transformed into something softer, her hair in neat curls, a delicate cardigan over her dress, eyes wet with tears. It was a show, and I hated that the judge might believe it. David sat beside his lawyer, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I reached under the table and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. Then the hearing began. Stephanie spoke first. She was good, not in an honest way. She was a liar, but a convincing one. I was just so scared, she said, voice trembling. I know my ex-husband loves our children, but his fiancée, she glanced at me, her lips trembling. I don't know her. And I noticed changes in my kids. Finn was flinching. Ella was withdrawing. I was just trying to protect them. I felt sick. David's lawyer stood. Miss Jacobs, are you aware that CPS found no evidence of a Bessie in Mr. Carter's home? Stephanie's eyes went wide. That doesn't mean nothing happened. No, the lawyer said, voice sharp. But it does mean that your accusations were unfounded. Stephanie sniffled. I just wanted to be safe. I'm their mother. That word, mother, felt like a dagger. Because she didn't say it with love. She said it with possession. Like those kids weren't people. Just things that belonged to her. David spoke next. He didn't rant. He didn't rage. He just looked at the judge and told the truth. My kids are afraid of her, he said simply. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I can't ignore it anymore. They flinch when they hear her name. They whisper when they talk about her. And they won't say it outright because they're scared. But I know. And I think the court knows too. Stephanie's lawyer stood. Do you have any evidence of a Bessie in Miss Jacobs' home? David hesitated. Not yet. Not yet. But we would. I swore to myself, we would. That night, back at the house, David sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. We're not going to win, he muttered. I leaned against the counter. Not yet. His hands curled into fists. I need proof. Hard proof. I didn't answer. Because I didn't have it. But the kids did. And I just had to figure out how to get them to tell it. The next week, the kids were returned to Stephanie's home while the investigation continued. The court didn't deem her in immediate danger, so they went back. And that's when the phone calls started. Late at night, whispered voices. Miss Rissa, my heart stopped. Finn, she's mad, he whispered. My stomach twisted. Are you safe? He hesitated. Not really. I gripped the phone. Where's Ella? With me. A rustle, then a muffled sob. She's mad at us, 'cause the judge almost let us stay with Dad. She said it's your fault. My breath caught. Finn, listen to me. Can you? The line went dead. And I knew. Right then and there, Stephanie was about to do something awful. I didn't sleep that night. Finn's voice kept replaying in my head. She's mad. It's your fault. Click. I tried calling back. Straight to voicemail. Tried texting Ella. No response. I wanted to believe it wasn't as bad as I feared, but my gut said otherwise. By sunrise, David found me in the kitchen, still staring at my phone like I could will it to ring. You're up early, he murmured. I didn't look at him. Something's wrong. David sighed, rubbing his hands down his face. He was exhausted too. We both were, but there was no room for that now. What happened, he asked. I told him about Finn's call. How it cut off so suddenly. The way his voice shook when he said she was mad. David grabbed his keys. I'm going over there. I stood immediately. I'm coming with you. He shook his head. No. If she sees you, she'll lose it. She'll make this worse. I clenched my jaw. He wasn't wrong. Stephanie already hated me. If I showed up at her door, she'd probably call the cops before I could even say a word. Still, letting him go alone felt wrong. I'll wait outside, I said. I just need to see them. David exhaled slowly. He didn't argue. That's how we ended up parked down the street from Stephanie's house, watching her front door like it might explode at any moment. David walked up the driveway alone, knocked twice, then stepped back. Nothing. He knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. I sat forward in my seat, my heart pounding. Then, finally, the door cracked open. Stephanie stood there in a bathrobe, her hair a mess, eyes slightly wild. What do you want? She snapped. David kept his voice calm. I want to see the kids. They're fine. Let me see for myself. She huffed. They're sleeping. David didn't move. I'll wait. Stephanie's nostrils flared. For a second, I thought she might slam the door in his face, but then something shifted. A slow, smug smile crept across her lips. Oh, she purred. You don't trust me? David's jaw ticked. That's not. I'm their mother, David. She spat, the sweetness vanishing in an instant. Not you. And definitely not your little WH. She stopped herself, eyes flicking toward the street. She saw me. I saw the exact moment her face twisted with pure hatred. Her fingers curled around the doorframe. Of course you brought her, she sneered. You really can't stand being alone, can you? David ignored the jab. I want to see my kids. She smirked. No, then she slammed the door. I was out of the car in seconds, but David turned around and shook his head. Don't, he warned. My hand shook. She's keeping them from you. I know. His voice was tight, controlled, and she's enjoying it. I wanted to scream, to kick down the door, to do something, but David was right. Stephanie was playing us, and I had the sickest feeling that she wasn't done yet. We went straight to David's lawyer. She was a no-nonsense woman named Monica Reyes, and she didn't waste time sugarcoating anything. CPS is still investigating, she said. If we push too hard right now, it could backfire. She could claim harm it, and the court might actually side with her. David's hands curled into fists. So what? We just wait. No, Monica said. We gather evidence. I leaned forward. What kind of evidence? Monica's expression darkened. You said Finn called you, right? That means he knows something. We need to get him to talk. David ran a hand through his hair. And how do we do that when Stephanie is keeping them locked up? Monica exhaled slowly. We need someone who can get to them without raising suspicion. A heavy silence settled over the room. Then it hit me. There's school. They might be trapped in Stephanie's house at night, but she still had to send them to school, which meant we had one shot. I was on talk to them. 2 days later, I waited outside Ella and Finn's school. David couldn't be here. It would raise too many red flags. But I wasn't technically banned from seeing them. Stephanie couldn't stop me if I just happened to be waiting near the bus stop. I spotted them before they saw me. Finn was dragging his feet, shoulders slumped under the weight of his backpack. Ella was quiet, her face blank, but I could see the tension in her jaw. They looked tired, drained, like kids who hadn't had a good night's sleep in a long time. When they finally noticed me, Finn's eyes went wide. Ella stiffened. I took a slow breath and smiled. Hey guys. Finn hesitated. Then, in a small voice, Miss Rissa? My heart ached. Yeah, buddy. It's me. Ella grabbed Finn's wrist, squeezing it in warning. We can't talk to you. The words stabbed, but I understood. I crouched down to their level, keeping my voice gentle. I just want to make sure you're okay. Finn looked down at his shoes. We're fine. Ella nudged him sharply. I hesitated, then reached in my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My number's inside, I said, if you ever need me. For anything. Ella hesitated. Then, slowly, she took it. And in that moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear. Hope. Something else I couldn't quite place. But I knew this, she wanted out. And somehow, someway, I was going to get them out. Days passed. Then a week. No calls. No messages. I was starting to lose hope when, one evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Miss Rissa? Finn. My stomach dropped. Finn, are you okay? He sniffled. No, I gripped the phone. What happened? She's really mad. She threw my dinner away and said I don't deserve to eat if I want to live with Dad. Rage burned through me. Where's Ella? I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. She's crying in her room, Finn whispered. She got in trouble for talking back. I closed my eyes. This was it. This was the moment I knew we had to act. Finn, listen to me, I said. I need you to be brave, okay? Can you do that? A pause. Then a shaky, okay. Do you still have that paper I gave you? Yeah. I swallowed. I need you to take a picture of anything that shows what's happening. Then send it to this number. Can you do that? Another pause. Then, okay. I didn't sleep that night. And when my phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m., I knew Finn had done it. Finn sent 4 photos and a voice memo. The first was of an empty plate in the trash. Nothing strange, except for the fact that his school lunch sat next to it, untouched. The second was of Ella's door, a chair wedged under the handle from the outside, locked in. The third was a bruise on Finn's arm. The fourth? A screenshot of a text message from Stephanie. You and Ella better get it through your heads. You're not going anywhere. Your father will never win. And if you even think about pulling something, you'll regret it. The voice memo? Finn whispering. She's been drinking a lot. I think she forgets we can hear her. She says mean stuff about Dad and you. And she said if we don't start line CPS, we'll be sorry. I forwarded everything to Monica, David's lawyer. Her response? This is exactly what we needed. We're getting those kids out. 2 days later, we were back in court. Only this time, we had the upper hand. Stephanie walked in looking smug, like she had already won. That lasted exactly 5 minutes. Because the moment Monica stood up and laid out the evidence, the photos, the text message, the recording, Stephanie's face went from confident to ashen. She tried to argue. She tried to cry. She tried to spin it. But there was no spinning this. The judge was furious. CPS? Furious. Even Stephanie's own lawyer looked like she was reconsidering her career choices. Stephanie's last move was desperation. I was just trying to be a good mother, she sobbed. Those pictures are taken out of context. He bruised himself. He enough. The judge's voice was sharp. The entire courtroom fell silent. Then, in a calm, steady voice, the judge looked at Stephanie and said, Your parental rights are officially revoked. Stephanie gasped. You can't do that, she shrieked. But she knew. We had won. David grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing it tight. Ella leaned into him, holding back tears of relief. And Finn? He smiled at me. For the first time in weeks. Stephanie didn't just lose custody. She lost everything. The court saw her as an unfit mother, but CPS saw her as a danger. A restraining order was filed. Her drinking? Court-mandated rehab. Her manipulations? Exposed. And when news spread to her job, the one she loved so much, the one she bragged about, she was fired. Turns out, being known as the unstable woman who emotionally upset her own children doesn't look great on a resume. She tried to appeal the ruling. She failed. She tried to turn people against David. No one believed her. And the best part? We didn't have to lift a finger. She destroyed herself. She was so consumed with trying to keep David from being happy, so obsessed with winning, that she never realized she was digging her own grave. The day David officially gained full custody, we celebrated the only way that mattered. At home, together, as a family. Ella curled up on the couch next to me, stealing my blanket. Finn sat on the floor, drawing something in his sketchbook. David came back from the kitchen with hot cocoa. Extra marshmallows for everyone, he said, setting the mugs down. Finn beamed. Even for you? David chuckled. Especially for me. Ella smirked. Dad, you eat like a teenager. David shrugged. I take that as a compliment. I smiled, watching them, watching us. Then, out of nowhere, Finn looked up at me and said, Can I call you Mom now? Silence. My throat closed up. Ella nudged him. Finn, you can't just... She turned to me, suddenly nervous. You don't have to, but I was already nodding, already pulling Finn into a hug as he grinned against my shoulder. Because I never planned on being a mom. I never thought I'd want to be. But for them, for Ella and Finn, I already was. And I always would be. Forever. Stephanie tried one last stunt a year later. A pathetic attempt at contacting the kids through a mutual acquaintance. She claimed she had changed, that she deserved to be in their lives again. But Ella and Finn, they didn't even hesitate. They blocked her number and never looked back. Because real family isn't about who gave birth to you. It's about who shows up for you. And Stephanie? She was nothing more than a bad memory. This was the perfect revenge. Not through cruelty, but through justice. Stephanie thought she could control everything. She thought she would win. But in the end, she lost everything that mattered. And we got the happy ending she never wanted us to have. And that was the best revenge of all.